This is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Talk. Today I'm on location in Westland, Michigan, with the guys from Universal Stomp, band that played the Detroit metropolitan area pretty much everywhere and ran from about 94 to 98, right around that range. Really heavy, powerful band, very exciting. I mentioned to the guys I had never actually seen you guys live. I had heard you before and I'd seen the videos, and a lot of energy and a lot of angst. Anyway, my guest today on the left is the guitar, or one of the guitar players, Mr. Scott Poole, and to my right, the lead vocalist, Mr. Ed McEachern. How you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Doing great.
That's cool, that's cool. Okay, let's get started, and I'll start, since you're on my left, I'll start with you, Scott. Where are you originally from? And what drew you to music, and specifically playing the guitar?
Oh, that's easy. My older brother. I have an older brother, Mike. He's 5 years older than me. And, when I was a kid, and I started listening and paying attention to everything he was listening to back in the day, the old Aerosmiths, and all the old stuff, the Sabbath and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't get a drum kit. My dad wouldn't do that for me. No matter how hard I tried, he was not having that, So I just started grabbing my brother's guitar and just fooling around with it until he got pissed and started locking his bedroom door. And that's how that all started. But that was when I was a kid out in Canton, and then I moved to Garden City, which is when last 2 years of high school. And that's when I met some of the other guys in Stomp. We were just kids in high school. It was right around that time in the mid 80s when, some of the old speed metal started coming around, and your Exodus and your Slayer and all that great stuff.
Yeah.
And of course we were all terribly influenced by it.
Of course.
And that's all we wanted to do. So we started a band way back then, and then eventually got back together and got Stomp going.
And like I say, at 94, were you guys together before then, like rehearsing and getting...
We were a couple of guys, Dave Curry, the other guitar player in Stomp, and Jeff Shankin, the drummer. We all went to high school together. And then later on, after a couple of years, when our high school band went away, we just started talking.
What was the high school band called?
Corrupt.
Yeah, Corrupt.
And then, just kind of talked again about doing another band, and we were rehearsing and just getting it off the ground when Ed got into the mix.
Right. And what was, I always ask this of guitar players, what was your first guitar that you owned? You mentioned your brothers, but what would have been the guitar that you would have owned that really helped you hone your skills?
Oh, like the first guitar ever, or the first guitar that really...
What made a difference as far as your playing in Stomp or whatever?
Oh God, I gotta go back to it. It's one of those guitars. Every guitar player, they write you a whole list of guitars that they had at one time and wish they still had to this day. I don't even remember where I got it. It was an old American Jackson.
That's why I asked that question, because a lot of people have to stretch their memory, and it's like, oh, it was some cheap piece of shit that my parents got for me at Monkey Ward's or some kind of crap like that. Yeah.
That's what, Jimmy, I had those too, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But that was the first real meaningful, just badass. You know what I mean? And I used it all through Stomp. It was just a wonderful guitar.
So that was your main axe?
It was.
Okay.
Was that the red V?
That was the red Strat.
Oh.
With the red wings emblem on it.
Yeah. Very cool.
So.
Well, Ed, basically the same question for you, but I mean, I know you played drums and all that too. Had you been playing drums growing up, or did you
No,
just...
I actually started as a bass player.
Oh, okay.
That didn't work out, and then just started singing. I was trying to be like Sebastian Bach or Lane Staley at the time.
That didn't last long, Because I mean, you don't sing like that in Stomp.
Yeah, and I was raised on cock rock and hip hop, so I was just trying to figure it out. Heard them playing what ended up being a song called Circle of Fear by Stomp, and I was in a band down the hallway at the loft on a couple of his acid, and you had to walk past their room to go to the bathroom.
Right.
And my one buddy Kyle made me go and audition for him, and just started screaming nonsense.
Just making it up.
Yeah, just screaming nonsense over their riffs, and it seemed to work,
Was there someone then singing with you guys before him?
No, at the time we were looking.
Oh,
and
okay.
then Ed would pop in, and you just hang out, and we got to know one another, and we'd all just have some beers, and because there was so much of that at the loft.
Right.
There's 40 bands.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I mean, back in the early days when we first started, though, there was only just a handful of bands.
There was a hallway. Yeah. know.
Yeah, the space wasn't available.
Right.
Like it is now. And
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, everybody got to know one another. You know, everybody's real cool. I was hanging out and he was just like, hey, man, you mind if I try something? I'm like, no, of course, help yourself, man. Let's get after it. And that's how that all started with that. And we all just were like, man, we got to get this guy in front of the mic.
Right.
You know, because we all liked what we heard, and that was that.
So, were you the only singer in Stomp then, or did you ever have anybody else? Did you step out or do something
Well,
else?
you had a couple guys coming in and out, but no.
Yeah, that was at the very end.
Oh, okay.
We had some gigs lined up, and I can't remember the guy's name.
Which one?
So long.
At the end?
Yeah, the guy.
Oh, at the end, Steve.
Steve.
Yeah, he replaced me, and we're still friends right now. He did one or two shows, one show,
It was something like
or
that.
something like that. Yeah.
Probably
And
two
he-
shows max.
Great singer, great, actually all around musician. He plays everything too. Yeah, he's awesome. I think you had Aaron Wormald auditioning from a Power Train singer, came in a couple times and did some stuff.
It's very possible, yeah. I'd be surprised if he didn't, because we were all such close friends.
And they were right next door.
Yeah.
But I think I was the only singer on the records.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And as far as that, how many records? We're calling them records, but they wouldn't have been. You guys didn't do any vinyl, I take it. You would have been all CDs.
Should have.
Right. Oh, yeah, no doubt. I love vinyl. So, how many CDs did you guys put out total?
Like 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5. We did like an EP at the beginning, and then we did, it's considered a full length, but there was 2 songs from the EP full length, and then we kind of broke up and got back together, and then did the 2296 record.
Now, are any of these available for sale anywhere, like Discogs or anything like that you know of?
No. Gee,
No?
I don't
EBR,
have
Press
that.
Final, yeah. We made like a compilation of all the CDs
Right.
just for a reunion show, and then I think those are all gone even.
You guys don't have any? I mean, the guys in the band don't have any?
I think we got like one each frame.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's it.
Okay, well, no, that's cool, man, to have
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Now, speaking of those CDs, where did you record them at? What studio, or did you go into a studio and record them?
Yeah, we did.
Where?
At Overture Records in Novi, which is long gone.
Mm-hmm.
But our bass player Aaron, his father had connections over there, and in fact he worked there, didn't he?
Yeah, his stepmom was in a band with the guy that ran the label.
There it is.
And that was what label again? What was
It
it?
was called Overture Records. So the guy that owned the label, or the guy that remember Hot Fudge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That guy financed it. I hope I'm remembering all this right.
You sound
And
right.
then his son was like recording bands and like recording commercials and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a band called, what was that band called?
Oh God.
Stretch of the memory.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, I understand, sure.
Yeah, it's shit. I don't
I might
remember.
remember. But anyway, Ruby is our the whole bass player. His stepmom was in that band and then hooked us up with recording there. And,
So were you signed to that label then?
Yeah.
For both the records?
yes.
And how do they go over at that time? Were you selling quite a few? Were they in the stores or just pretty much solely shows?
It's hard to say. I mean, one of the things about Overture back then was it was a real plus is they got tremendous distribution. So when we would be on the road, I mean, we might be, I don't know, Texas or something, and you know, you got all this time to kill in between shows. You know, you got your drive time and that, but then we seek out, you know, guitar shops or
Sure.
record stores just to kill time. And, you know, we would be impressed. You might be in some other state, and sure enough, there's your CD, you know, in the rack. So we were really happy with that, but there was always a big question as far as overall sales.
Right.
You know, and whether or not they weren't above board on that, or they were, I don't really know.
Did you make any money off the CDs yourselves?
No, I know it was cool that we had like, remember Harmony House?
I
We had,
worked
like,
at Harmony
our
House.
Own little like section.
Yes.
Our own little divider thing.
Yeah.
The card.
Yeah.
I
we had
set,
our own little
I
card.
set all those up.
So that was cool, but I remember like it was over $8 a CD that we had to pay to resell them. So
Really?
our wholesale price for us of the band was like $8 or something. So that's how ridiculous.
So if you were buying it $8, what were you selling, like 15, something like that?
We still sell them at time.
Oh, 10.
Yeah.
So you weren't out to
No, we weren't trying to make money.
make money. You just wanted to get the music out there. Right.
Like how CDs are flyers, pretty much.
Right. Now, speaking of which, the other thing with a lot of the early CDs, they sounded like total shit. Were you guys happy with, how your came out sounded?
I think overall, everyone in the band would agree that it was good, but I think we were after a little bit more of a polished tone and just overall sound. We of course, when you listen to it back in the studio or these big 15-inch speakers,
Yeah.
I mean, everything sounds incredible.
Of course.
Right? Well, what we would do is we would get a cassette copy that evening after whatever we recorded, and then we would sit out in our car in the driveway of the studio and listen to it there to get a better
Right.
kind of feel for how it sounded. And the thing was is he didn't have much experience recording like metal or any that
Really
kind of
his
thing.
first metal band.
Yeah.
Would you consider your band metal? I would have thought you were more hardcore. Hardcore metal, or punk metal, kind of,
I thought
or
we were
grindcore.
hardcore to the metal.
Yeah.
Like the metal side of hardcore. Yeah.
Okay.
I always thought there was a great thing about the band is it seemed like doing shows with so many different bands and that kind of thing. I always thought we fit in really well with either whether it was with punk bands or metal bands,
Right.
or, hardcore bands, whatever. It all worked, Yeah, I mean whatever it was.
We didn't really set out to be metal or hardcore.
Right.
We just kind of, just because we're all different from way different backgrounds.
Yeah.
It just ended up sounding like that.
Now, as far as the songs, were the songs brought like you'd write a song, or was it something that the band would come up with a riff and you'd write lyrics to? Because some bands do it, one way, and some bands do it the other combination of the two.
Most of it, they would have the songs kind of halfway organized already, and I would just spit nonsense over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever, we would cassette record our practices and does that work or does it not work? You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
then talk about it and go from there. And then write lyrics from either the improv or.
So you would fine tune it later as far as what
we
you
all
were
wrote
saying?
lyrics. We all hung out and did.
Oh, everybody really wrote lyrics?
Well, to a certain degree, but I mean, Ed wrote most of them.
Yeah, I would think so. Usually the singer does.
What would happen is Ed would get a feel for a song that say it was progressing where we knew it was going to stick. All we had to do was figure out the last bit of it or whatever.
Right.
And he would sit there at rehearsal with a pad of paper and a pen. And as of course when you're writing a new song, you're playing it 100 times, right?
Of course.
Over and over. And so he would get a real good feel for it then and just start jotting stuff down and then try different things and whatever, which I'm sure a lot of guys do.
Sure, of course, yeah.
So.
Now, as far as the music, I mean, like I said, you guys are very heavy. When I think of metal, like I said, I think of more, because I know there's all sorts of different genres of metal. I would have kind of, from what I've heard of you, almost like hardcore metal. Is that fair to assume?
Sure.
Okay. Now, as far as the music and you writing the lyric, you would more or less bring it off the top of your head. Were there certain themes or certain ideas that lent themselves better to the type of the music you were playing, or would you be across the gamut?
I mean, it would be across the gamut. Yeah, I didn't have anything premeditated. Whatever I thought was cool was, and if they agreed with me, then it was.
But you weren't writing love songs, so I mean,
No.
you guys didn't have any ballads, from what I understood. So
Yeah.
I
I actually did, there was one song we had that there was a kind of a lovey lyrics about it. It was all about how much love is awful.
Right, okay.
But nothing, no love song.
No, I wouldn't think so, but I meant lyrically as far as that, because it doesn't seem like it would lend itself too well to it. And that's what I was kind of getting at as far as that. If you had certain themes,
It's just trying to figuring out why you feel a certain way, whatever.
Because some singers and all that, they're in the movies, theatrics, this kind of stuff, read certain kind of books that influence their lyrics. So there wasn't anything like that. You just kind of went with it.
No, I consider something my own personal therapy.
Oh, okay.
And I would just scream to get shit out, and then I'd feel better after our practices or our shows. It was a thing like that. And if they agreed with what I was doing, then we would just let it fly.
Any times where you didn't agree with it, you said that doesn't quite fit?
You know what, Jimmy? I'll tell you something. To be brutally honest, there was a lot of times we would be in the studio recording these songs, and the whole time that we had rehearsed these songs and gotten tight and all that, I wasn't quite sure what Ed was even singing about.
Okay.
But he sang, and the way he put his lyrics into the songs,
right?
I loved it, man. So at the time, I didn't really even give a shit what he was singing about.
Sure.
I know a lot of people that's really big for them is lyrics and all that kind of thing and stuff. And there was times again in the studio, and he would have it all written down, of course, and he'd be getting after it in front of the microphone.
Right.
And then afterwards, I'd start reading them. Or once the CD was pressed and it'd have all the lyrics in it, I'd go over them because there was a lot of stuff I didn't even know what the hell he was saying. But it was always cool because there was at no point did we ever not trust that.
Right. No, I get
to
that.
write cool lyrics and to make it happen. We were never disappointed.
Very important. Not that I would expect you would. Now, when you said you didn't know what he was singing, was that, I don't mean any offense to you, but your singing style as far as... your singing style as far as you saying screaming, I've been listening to that kind of stuff, and I couldn't understand half of what you're saying.
Right.
Now, your fans, the people out there, obviously, after hearing it, and it kind of surprises me, but doesn't surprise me based on that you would include the lyrics with the CD. Was that to help people out, or was that just to make it fancy?
I was surprised that people would sing the lyrics. I had no idea how they would understand what I was saying.
That's what I'm saying.
I had no idea, that they would get it, but some people get it.
And how many times? I mean, I realize you guys would obviously be majorly well rehearsed before you go out and do a show. But were there ever any nights, and I like to get into these kind of stories and all that maybe you had smoked something or had a drink and you couldn't remember what you sang, and you had to totally make it up on the fly? Were there ever any times like that?
Definitely. I've definitely done that. Do improv, whatever, trying to cover up, being too drunk to be singing. Or we went on, because we would be made to go on, late. Sometimes, and I'm not refraining from having drinks.
Right.
So yeah, of course, for sure.
That's great. And sometimes that comes out probably better than you had anticipated. Wow, that's kind of a cool thing too. Did you guys ever, I've seen the videos and all that, but did you guys ever in any bar or anywhere record yourselves live? I don't mean as an official release or anything like that.
Yeah, I think there's some board recordings.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know who, probably Jeff. He probably has them.
Probably. Yeah, as far as what shows those were or where they were at, I don't recall, but I know there was a couple of times that we ended up getting a cassette out of the board and checking it out. But, getting back to what you were just talking about, you and Ed were talking about as far as lyrically maybe having a little fun before the show and maybe blaming on a couple of lyrics. The band was rarely ever did that, because I know, personally, if I had this with a couple of beers while we were hanging out, but I couldn't play to my capability if I was getting loaded.
Oh, absolutely.
I was a mess. And the last thing I ever wanted was to disappoint not only anybody who actually paid to get in there, which is most important, but the guys in the band.
Of course.
And the rest of the dudes in the band were like that too, It was like, hey man, we can have a good time and we'll have a good time, but if you want to have a really good time, it's going to have to wait until after the gig. Because there's nothing worse than these kids paying to show up and, one of the guys in the band is hammered and he's butchering a set and, we're not having it.
If somebody was bumming everybody out, that would...
Well, you can get away with it as a singer usually, because I know, because I fronted the bands and I also played bass, but just like you said, I never went out, if I was playing an instrument, playing bass or keys, would ever even consider getting even slightly buzzed, because you want to really focus on what you're doing.
That's it.
Because you take pride. You're going to take pride in what you're doing, and you don't want to disappoint your fans and all that and one another, so it's very important. But as a singer,
I had wicked stage fright, so I would have to do a couple of shots or whatever.
Sure.
To get the courage to.
Did you battle with that for a while?
Oh man, there's videos of me that not have my back to the crowd. I think famously between us, St. Andrews or something, opening up for Guar, it took me 2 songs to turn around. I was just petrified.
It was real early though,
right?
In the whole band.
Yeah, and then as soon as I got they liked it, then I was fine. Worked it up in my head. So
well, that would have been a pretty big show too, I imagine. With that a lot.
Yeah, St. Andrews was intimidating. Yeah, the balcony and everything,
Oh, sure.
It was a thing.
Now, one of the other places I didn't mention, and I'm thinking you guys would have. Did you play Blondies?
Oh God, yeah, we used to rehearse at Blondies.
Okay, right.
Now this was before the Loft, because
was it Stomp though?
Yeah, it was Stomp.
Oh, was it? Okay, it was before me.
Yeah, it was, because we hadn't quite made it to the Loft yet.
Because the first official Stomp show was Blondies last weekend open. Yes.
Yep. And what happened? Our drummer Jeff, he knew Roosevelt really well, and we were struggling to find. We used to rehearse in storage units in the middle of winter with a torpedo heater and that kind of thing. So he let us come in during the week after hours and just rehearse on the stage. Oh, it was great. It was really cool of him. So that's what we did, and it was somewhere during that time that our drummer Jeff had heard about the Loft, and if there was an available room, he was trying to get us in there, and that's what ended up happening, and that's where we met Ed.
were some of the? I mean, I know you had mentioned you played with a lot of other local bands and whatnot, whether you were headlining, opening, or whatever. Did you guys play with any national acts? In other words, at the Harpo's or whatever, who would you have opened for?
Yeah, God.
For a while, like once we got a little bit of a name for us, like people would, whether we were playing the show or not, would put us on as openers to get like 100 people there. You know what I mean? But I mean, every time like Overkill had Harpo's or like Propane.
Clutch, Machine Head, like Ed mentioned, War, a bunch. What happened is we ended up, after a while, with a good rapport with the people at St. Andrews. And they were really cool to us. They knew that, you know, we weren't going to be a bunch of buffoons, you know.
And the guys from, remember Brotherhood Recipe?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that guy was working at St. Andrews. We ended up being friendly with him.
That's how, we started getting more chances to open up for national acts. So we did that a lot down at St. Andrews. Big fun. Conforming with that.
We suicidal
tendencies.
Really? Wow. Yeah, that is some major stuff. That is some great groups. You opened up for Dokken.
We did.
That's a funny story.
Tell me the funny story, because at that time I would have probably been more into Dokken, that kind of metal and hair metal.
The old Ritz in Roseville.
Yeah, we played there. Yeah, remember that place.
I don't know whose idea was it to have us open for Dokken.
It was their idea, Ed.
Huh?
It was their idea.
Oh, was it Ritz?
We had played there with I don't know, Malevolent Creation and who else? Forbidden.
Yeah.
And so we were doing that there as well, you
Yeah.
know, and we'd be a supporting act for some of these nationals coming through.
Sure.
It was going over well, but the
Yeah.
metal band. The thing is, I think capacity over at the old Ritz was 3,000. And they were at 26 or something, and they knew that we were enough draw that they could likely sell out at 50%. So they called our studio and asked if we were interested. We laughed about it, and then after discussing it, we're like, "What the hell? Why not? Who cares?
Sure.
Let's do it." So we did.
It was ridiculous. You know, like we literally got booed off the stage. Excellent. It was like one of the best times I think
awesome.
as a band. But like we're saying it was a sold out whatever Ritz crowd.
Right, yeah. Was it a Friday or Saturday night mentioned?
I don't know.
Probably for National Act. Yeah,
But
okay.
it was like a little pocket of people that liked us.
Right.
Everybody else hated us. So we sold a bunch of merch, thing else, but it was entertaining. It was entertaining for me for sure.
Ed and I have talked about this over the years. One of the things that always stands out to me about that show is maybe 5 songs in, and you're getting all these looks like, what the hell? You know, like, why are these guys?
Who are these guys? What are they doing here?
And you can tell people just are not feeling it, except for, like, I mentioned a small group and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even years after that show, we'd be doing a show somewhere, and you get to talking to people, and inevitably, it must have happened 100 times. Here's what you'd hear. Man, my girlfriend drugged me out to this Dokken show that I didn't want to go to, you know what I mean? Because they're
Right.
more like a metal guy.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And I saw you guys open up for Dokken, man. I've been following you dudes ever since. And it ended up being that getting booed off the stage by the Dokken fans is one of the coolest things that happened to us, because that small group of people, they started following us. You know what I mean? It was really cool for the band. I heard that story 100 times.
As far as being booed off the stage, how many songs did you guys end up playing?
5 or 6.
5 or 6?
Yeah, because they were like waiting for like, dream on, you know.
Right, yeah.
They were like, ah. And I remember like having to sing through Don Dokken's monitor mix because we weren't allowed to.
Right, you didn't
fuck
get a
with the
sound check,
at all.
yeah.
And I can say fuck, right?
Of course. This is YouTube, baby.
So like we sound checked or our line checked or whatever for us, and like screamed. It was so blood curdlingly loud on stage that Jeff was like unplugging all the monitors around the drums and everything because it was ridiculously loud because that guy sings so quiet.
Yeah.
It was humorous for sure. It was humorous.
It was, and I was laughing during the songs because you could just see the looks on these people's faces like, what the hell, man? What
They
is
weren't
this
ready for
shit?
that.
You know? No, they just didn't get it, man.
Did you get paid to play that game?
Yes.
Yeah, I have no idea how much.
Yeah.
Right.
We probably made more money on merch.
Probably.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of merch then at that time, or consistently over the years?
Absolutely.
T-shirts,
that's where we made
obviously.
money,
Yeah. Talking that is funny. You know, not that I couldn't see you guys doing a show like that, because believe me, over the years I've seen a lot of matched lineups.
Yeah. What else I remember about that show, Ed, is during sound checks, what was really weird, you know, their buses were in the back.
Right.
Well, come to find out, like Don Dokken had his own bus.
Yeah.
Because I guess like he was such an asshole that they were like feuding. With
Him and Lynch feuded quite a bit.
So yeah.
But the drummer and bass player are awesome guys.
Did you end up meeting them?
Yeah. We definitely like met them and knew that those Don and George were dickheads. So, I mean, like
Egos,
I could
you
even
mean.
have a conversation with George Lynch. The guy walked away from him. Like in
Really?
conversation. Yeah,
I offended him about his hairdo. I love George Lynch. I think he's an absolutely amazing guitarist. You know, even though one of the beautiful things about Stomp is, Ed mentioned it earlier, we all had all kinds of different influences. Well, just because we enjoyed playing metal or hardcore or whatever the hell you want to call it, I love Rat and Dokken and all that shit from back in the 80s. And I still do to this day for the most part, right? So George Lynch is one of my guitar heroes. Sound checking, now's the time, you know? Couldn't find him. And so I asked our drummer, Jeff, I'm like, Jeff, have you seen George Lynch, man? I just want to introduce myself.
Right.
You know, I love the guy. Well, this was at the time that George got a pompadour. And he's like, dude, he's right over there. He's way back there. You see him? And I'm like, that's, you know, I didn't think that was him. I was like, okay, fine. So I go up, I introduce myself, George, my band, you know, we're opening up for you tonight. I gotta tell you, man, you know, I love your playing and this and that. And then I follow that up with, but I didn't even know that was you. I said, what's going on with the Elvis hairdo, man? And my man just walked away from me. Never said a goddamn word to me. Nothing. So I guess I pissed him off about talking about his Elvis do or some shit.
I mean, who didn't have tooth and nail in their car, though? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
We all have that record in our car.
Of course. Now, as far as the local scene, you mentioned, you know, the places you'd played. Were there certain other local acts you like playing with a lot? In other words, your audience, your crowd went over well with them that maybe you handpicked, you know, got together with to do shows.
Well, the thing about that is, you know, being at the Loft, there were so many other bands, and there was a lot of really good bands. The best thing about the Loft is you will never find a more concentrated group of just great people. So, I mean, there's a lot of bands up there that maybe you were like, you know, maybe wasn't your thing. Fun dudes to hang out with, you know. So fortunately, there was enough bands doing the same kind of deal, you know, metal or whatever. And sure, we do shows all the time.
What was the place called that we played with Rob? Rob got you in touch with like those Bentleys, like all the Loft bands. Place called Barnstormers. And there was like, I don't know, like 15 Loft bands there.
There was.
It was just cool. It was like a built-in
2 stages that day.
Yeah, back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, going back and forth.
So that was a Bent Lucy gig, or was that a Vietnam prom thing?
It was Mount Lucy played.
It had to be back then.
Now, did you do any shows with the prom at all?
I did with another band.
Ed did.
Oh,
but
okay.
Stomp, I don't believe Stomp did.
Oh, okay.
Ed did with Motor City Burgers, though.
Yeah, we played it a lot.
So you know Rob pretty well. Do you know Rob? Have you know Rob at all?
You know, sometimes names come up, and I kind of remember this guy or that guy, but you know, again, after 30 years, you know.
He's definitely like, I mean, Loft parties and everything.
Yeah, because he definitely knew you and stuff, and he said to me, he goes, well, this guy is going to be a talker. And he said something about, he told you, whatever you do, don't clam up.
Yeah.
You know, be natural. Because
that's why I called Scott, because I suck on these things, so I wanted to get Scott over here, you know?
Well, yeah, you know, in case you forgot something and all that. You know, because that's the best thing about doing this is the stories, like this Dokken story. I wouldn't have thought that in a million years. Now, you'd mentioned you toured outside of Michigan. Where exactly? All over the country or specific areas?
Pretty much.
Yeah, we did Boston to Florida.
Yeah, we did Boston a couple times.
Yeah, well, it was like Boston down to Florida.
Yeah.
You know, like down that, and then we did the West Coast one time. I mean, maybe we toured, I don't know, 8 months total.
Something like that.
Something like that. Not like extensively,
Right.
but enough to figure it out.
Did you ever tour as far as that with specific bands that you went out on the road with? Or was it just like gigs and, you know, whatever?
Just the record label had us hitting the college circuit, in which case, whatever bar that was, or venue, they would have local guys who...
We toured that that West Coast, the Chronophonics or Cradlephonics,
Chronophonics.
which was a band that the corn bass player produced or whatever. And that was our West Coast tour. So we were on tour with them, but it was a club tour.
But that was only like, we jumped on with them, was it 4 shows?
Yeah, something like that. We had our tour, we met with them, and they like went and opened up for Corn for a couple of days and came back. It was like that. Yeah, we didn't have like a set Stomp tours.
I was wondering because I thought maybe the label that you were on might have had some other bands in that label that they would have sent you out or had you play with them specifically.
Well, there was a time on our second full length that they had arranged and had it all worked out. We were going to get on the Vans tour. And so we were amped about that.
Yeah,
I mean,
of
I don't
course.
remember how long it was. Do you, Ed? It was like 8 weeks or some shit on the Warped Tour. And that was, you know, I don't know if it was only the second Warped Tour or whatever it was.
We had Stomp shoes for Vans for a minute.
Yeah, and of course we were fired up. We couldn't wait to do it. And then they got back with the studio just prior to us, you know, making plans and jumping on the tour, the whole thing. And I think they wanted 20 grand or something. And then the studio, the record label was actually considering paying it, but they checked with us as, what do you guys think? And we were like, the hell with them. After.
They wanted the label, you guys, to pay 20 grand to be on their show?
Like,
on
where
their tour.
initially we were just asked to do it, and of course we were all in. I don't think we were going to get paid, but we were used to that. It was going to be really minimal just to get you know.
It was all about the exposure, and then of course you'd
Absolutely.
sell your merch. Did you guys, as far as touring, did you play any festivals? Were there any metal fests or anything like that?
No, we didn't get to do that. Like his band, like Walls of Jericho, was like huge.
When you mentioned the West Coast, were you playing some of the well-known clubs like the Whiskey or those kind of places?
No.
More underground kind of place? What were some of the clubs or places you would have played in on the West Coast?
God, it's hard to remember what the hell. I remember in San Francisco, there was it called the QE2, I think it was called, which is a lot like St. Anger, which is really cool. You know,
We did it. We didn't even play that.
No, we did. You're right.
No, we went there and it was canceled. We drove all the way there and it was canceled.
That's what
Drove all the way there from where?
From I don't remember.
LA, I think.
We ended up going to Reno from there. I remember that.
That's it. Was after the LAs. We did 2 shows in LA
Yeah.
at 2 different venues.
We didn't play like any of the cool LA clubs at all.
But it was nothing that was, you know, you went in and it was just some tiny little, you know, shit club or whatever.
Sure.
I mean, they were cool bars. So I didn't have a problem with it. The one that I remember on that particular tour was a place called the Atomic Cafe in
Phoenix.
Scottsdale. And what was unique about it is there was a good crowd and everything. It was, you know, the staff was real cool and all that kind of stuff. A couple of guys from Rob Halford's band at the time, Fight, came out to see us. And so, you know, we were kicking it with them after the show and all that thing. Well, they brought us back to their rehearsal space, which was just a house in Scottsdale that Rob Halford had bought and had the garage converted over to a rehearsal space. And that's where, you know, of course we didn't get a chance to meet Rob, which would have been great. I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan.
Oh, God.
Everywhere. Gibson's
Oh,
all over.
sure.
Oh man, yeah, this guy was endorsed by Gibson and just like, wow.
Yeah, that was a killer band. Now, when you were in LA, even though you guys didn't play those, what you call like legendary clubs, you being guitarist and liking some of the, you know, a lot of these hair metal bands and all that, did you get to go to those places? Or did you go to the Whiskey and see any
Well, we
bands?
didn't
Have any time at all?
We didn't have the time.
No?
You just didn't, you know, you get to in the general area of that show and just hang out and
We played
do the gig and then you had to go to the next one.
Corona. We did a theater in Corona. I don't remember the name of it.
Okay.
But that was like south of LA or whatever.
Right.
Now, being from Detroit, and you're all the way out on the West Coast, did they know you there? Had they heard of you? In other words,
Some places did, some places didn't. Like for whatever reason, I remember our first time in was it West Virginia, Ed? Was that Fayetteville?
No, Roanoke.
Roanoke.
We were like as big in Roanoke because we were in Michigan, and then we were in Reno, Nevada, like similar large. You know, it was weird.
could that have been based on colleges
They simply
playing your stuff?
like the Stomp's record in Reno and sold like 500-600 copies of it with our same barcode.
As far as that, now the East Coast, you're playing the East Coast, and I always like to ask bands, especially bands that were from the 90s, did you ever get to play CBGBs?
Yes, we sure did.
Everybody I've talked to, whether they're metal bands, alternative bands, it's always going to be a bucket list.
Oh, for sure.
And-
my top 3 things to do in my life,
Now, how did that go over? Were you guys on a good night, or 'cause I know they were playing
You know
bands?
what? It wasn't even in the evening. It was a Sunday matinee.
Oh, okay.
Listen to the bands we played with. We played with Kiss It Goodbye, which is like Dead Guy and like all those guys, and Candiria headline. Candiria we before they had a bass player.
And there was a ton of kids, so it was great.
It was in like later. I'm friends with the Andrew guitar player, and we talked about it later. But perfect, it was perfect.
Yeah, and just hang out with everybody. I mean, it's New York. Again, it was a Sunday matinee show. We finished up, we're watching the other bands, and we just went out, on the corner, and I just started talking to some guy in a Corrosion of Conformity shirt, and he introduced me to this guy, and we're just hanging out, pounding beers on the corner. I had a blast. It was great.
So how was that club as far as playing there? Because I mean, it's not
intimidating for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's, from what I understand, a lot of bands would be intimidated. Because I mean, the bands that have played there over the years. Plus, it's not that big a place.
No, it's not.
That was like a giant living color, and watching their video of them playing CBGBs made me want to play it.
Yeah.
And then that's how I found Bad Brains, everything else. And I was just so fired. I was so fired up just to take a fucking piss in that bathroom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was in there just taking pictures of the bathroom. I was in heaven there. I was stoked to be there.
Did you guys do any covers? Any cover material, or was it all original? Who would have been some of the bands that you would have covered?
Oh God, what did we cover? We covered Santos Sopranos.
Oh, Nirvana.
A couple of times. When we did a cover tune, it was never anything that was in the set for too long. It was something that we dick around with at practice and have fun with, and then we just throw it in the mix for shows maybe 2, 3, 4 times, and that would be it.
Right. At the beginning of the band, there was a show or two that we had to play 2 sets, and which is impossible for an original band. We went a bunch of shit and not priced. I think me and Shank and Squid, I played drums, he sang.
Yes.
We would do dumb shit.
That was on Symptom of the Universe from Black Sabbath. We played that one.
Spermbirds. Ruby sang that.
Yeah.
Biohazard. What Biohazard song did Ruby sang? Where is he at? Gotta remember this shit.
Yeah. It was not anything that stuck for too long.
I get you.
And they would be considered, pull them out of the archives if there was a show. Like one in particular was out in Flint, and it was a tattoo shop, and they were having this big party, and they asked us to play, but we needed to play a longer set than what we were doing at the time. So, we'd say, hey, remember we used to play this or whatever.
Typically, how long were your sets then? 40 minutes, 45, something like that?
It really depends on where we were at. Where we were at in the band is we only had a full length at one time, and then we got to the point where we had 2 full lengths and a couple of songs on the EP, so we were able to do longer sets.
Our longest set, I think, was an hour 15. When we were opening, it was 25, 30 minutes.
Did you ever, as far as that, you're starting out, I know a lot of bands have done this too, drag the song out a little bit longer. Bamping a little bit more, especially if the crowd is into it, they're doing their bit and stuff. Did you ever do any of that, or you pretty much kept
the intro a little bit longer?
Yeah, just pretty much keep it across the board straight.
Yeah, everything was kind of strictly business. We didn't really improv a lot. We didn't, which for good reason. I mean, I could never do it with a shit.
I didn't mean so much improv, do another verse, or do another chorus, do another this, of what you're playing.
Yeah, not too often. Usually it was on, there was a song that seemed to be like one of the more popular ones called Circlet.
Hit?
Yeah.
OEM?
OEM.
Right. Oh. That's the first one on collection on Spotify.
And, the kids would be singing it and the whole thing, and so there was times we would end the show with it, and then we would go another round of the chorus.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Hey, I meant more or less, like you said, when you didn't have that much material, stuff that just, we expect you to play 45 minutes. Well, we got 25 minutes of material. Do something about that. Stretch it out. Do something.
What's more important to us is we're going to do 3 or 4 songs with no talking. Just go, and we would identify the show, right? And when we're, I was supposed to say something or somebody was going to say something, but we just try to go. And it's rather play all the songs that pop up.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure, I get that.
Yeah.
More or less no nonsense as far as that. You weren't up there saying, hey, chicks, let's go party later, this kind of stuff.
It's time for a drum solo.
Yeah.
I mean, we might have considered that, but when you're going to metal and hardcore shows, there ain't too many chicks, man.
No.
The ones that are there, it's...
It's just the after party is waiting for us. Let's go.
What happened to the band? A lot of bands at that time ended because of something changed in the music scene. Like grunge was coming in. And what caused the band to kind of go away? Was there a specific reason? Did you guys lose interest in it?
A couple reasons.
Yeah, I think it all started when, we mentioned our bass player, Aaron Ruby. He was contacted by our friend Mike, who's the guitar player, or was, for for most of the time. He's not anymore, but for Walls of Jericho, and he was getting
Right.
that off the ground.
I
Okay.
think they were Earth Mover for a while. Like
They were. And it was a real good guy, and, you know,
friends of ours, all
really
were all good.
And the thing about Aaron was he was a straight edge guy, you know, and I think a lot of us in the band were starting to see that it was wearing on him a little bit, you know, being in this kind of, while he enjoyed the band and we were all good friends, the whole party atmosphere.
Right.
Which was never extreme or too much,
Sure.
you know, it was just a lot of drinking and that. He was approached to get that going with Mike, and Mike was kind enough to call. I remember he called me and said, hey, look, before I talk to Aaron, you know, I wanted to let you know I was going to ask him, and I said, you know what, Mike, just do it, and he's going to accept because I think he's kind of done with us. You know?
For sure. Yeah, he was done.
And so, you know, we lost him, and then just from there, it just kind of.
You didn't like think about auditioning other people to keep it going, or you guys pretty much?
There was one Stomp show with a different bass player and a different singer.
I think there was a Pontiac somewhere at some place.
Yeah, it was an upstairs venue.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of it.
And do you remember your last gig?
Our last show was at the Sardine Bar. It's
Yes.
gone. In Detroit, was it the Riverfront somewhere?
I don't know, Ed, because you would
The Burger's open
schedule
for
a lot
it.
of shows.
The Burger's open the last time.
So were you in both
I
bands?
played drums, in the
Yeah.
first band.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
How was that? That had to be kind of trip.
It was cool. I mean, we didn't realize it was our last show at the time.
Oh, at the time.
When we were doing it, it was just time.
Yeah.
We had a different drummer too for how long? About 2 years.
I didn't think it was 5 years with Joe Smith.
No. Mikey Four.
Oh, Mikey. Yeah, Mikey was probably 2 years.
Yeah, so we had Shankin kind of freaked out. He didn't like being on tour. He didn't like being on the road. And then we had an 8-month hiatus trying to find another drummer to replace him.
Sure.
Mikey Four, and then we did all of our touring pretty much with that guy.
Who did a great
He
job.
was fucking awesome.
Great guy,
He was
hell of a
18-year-old kid at the time.
Right,
trying
wow.
to hang. Fucking awesome. He was awesome.
He was terrific.
Joe Smith came in and we did the Milwaukee Metal Fest with Joe Smith.
That's right.
So you did play at Fest.
Yeah.
I guess we did.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Boy Bud and fucking.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine you guys not playing some kind of fest
that was great.
over that. That would have been a blast, I imagine.
Oh, there were some great bands on that bill too.
Yeah, it was like
Boy
Machine
Bond.
Heads, Fuck Mojo.
Yeah.
Okay, well I'm gonna wrap this up with one last question
Okay.
for you guys.
Cool.
What are you doing now, or are you doing anything? Are you playing any? Are you still playing guitar? Are you playing in bands? Are you doing anything as far as that?
No. I mean, I be square with you, I rarely even play here at home anymore. You know, so.
Did you lose interest, or you just?
It's just, kind of, well, you know what? A lot of that has to do with the fact that I just kind of flamed out years ago on a lot of the newer stuff that was coming out. I'm not into it. And that influences it, you know what I mean?
Right, I
For
get
me
that.
personally. But that wasn't too long ago. Ed and I, we were in another band and had a great time. Well, how long was Zeros?
We did
together?
10 years of
Yeah.
another band.
What was that band?
The Slamming Zeros.
Oh, okay.
We had a hell of a lot of fun.
One of the Burger guitar players was a bass player, a singer of 10 Ton Dieselhead, singer of Zeros, and we just did I don't know, what is it, punk rock, biker rock,
Kind of.
whatever,
But what about you? Are you still performing at all, or doing anything?
No, not.
Even on
nothing
the
serious.
side, nothing serious.
Nothing serious, hanging out, hopping on improv shows and
Right.
doing dumb shit, but nothing.
Nothing at a
for real.
serious level.
I'm just too old to give a shit. You know what I mean? I just don't care anymore.
That's it.
Well, like I was saying, 94 through 98, 4 years and a little bit before that, getting it together, that's a pretty damn good run, to be honest with you, because a lot of bands don't last beyond that. Especially doing the type of stuff that you guys are doing, which is high energy, high this. I mean, you must have come off the stage a lot of times from the videos I've seen, just freaking totally exhausted,
Literally, like I said,
mess.
it was like therapy. At the
Yeah.
end, it was just thank God, thank God.
We enjoyed doing it so much. We were very lucky in the fact that it seemed like a lot of the kids seemed to like what we were doing too, because they, as time went on, there would be more of them showing up, and it was great. We did some amazing shows, and it just the guys in the band, to a man, they're the kind of guys that you're lucky enough to be in a band with, because not only are they talented, but they're great guys, and they get it. You know how it is being a band yourself, right? Holy shit, this drummer's amazing. Well, then he's got his head in his ass, and it doesn't work out, right?
Right.
So we were very fortunate.
It's hard to be married to 4 people.
Anyway, this has been Jimmy Jive and talking to the guys here from Universal Stomp. Mr. Scott Poole over here, one of the guitar players, and McEachern, who was the vocalist. Been great talking to you guys. This is Jimmy Jive saying that if you dig this kind of stuff, and you dig these kind of shows and interviews as much as I dig doing them, do me a favor if you can. Hit the like button, subscribe. It just shows me that there's an interest out there. And I've got a lot of killer bands coming up, killer artists, and I just need the help to just keep me going. With that said, as I like to say, just keep on rocking.